Let me describe a little bit about the audio position. And I'm sorry, I don't really have an outline, so I'll just kind of go through some of the basics. But, the first thing is we turn on our sound system with a sequencer. There's actually a key right here that you would turn 2 clicks clockwise in order to fire up the sequencer. It then turns on the rack that's down below, turns on the mixer, of course, turns on the amp room and the amps in the amp room and some of these other devices. It helps, keep the sound system from popping and keep the power distribution from just all coming on at once. The wing mixer I do like. It has a different sort of system with the inputs versus the channels. The nice thing is, if you come and take a look at all the inputs, you can describe basically what your physical inputs are coming in. For instance, on the AS50A line, you can say, hey, here's, channel 1 physically is my kick, snare, so on. And then that box is up under the stage, where the physical microphones and connections are made. And then on this, as far as channels, you can actually just say this channel 1, contains the input defined from this box right here, which is tagged V1, which is our vocal 1, which is A14. What that allows us really to do is have not a channel tied to a specific input necessarily. We can rearrange those around. Hence, with a digital mixer, this only has 12 sliders per layer. There's 48 XLR sort of inputs plus I think 8 more aux inputs. But what it allows us to do is create a layer, a user layer, and that user layer can then be described just of what I'm using for that day. So for instance, this last Sunday I was using vocal V1, V2, V3, and V5. We didn't actually have a vocal 4 up on the stage. I had a couple of guitars, I had keys and pads, bass, and then some wireless handhelds and a lapel. So I can create a user layer, and I literally just drag in the inputs that I need. Basically, it's like a population group, but just with specific defined, layer and then what I could do is create another layer for the devotional sort of worship, midweek, and not necessarily mess with my layer 1. I can also always go to my top layer, which for me, I put my top layer as vocals. I know many people in the industry put top layer as drums. I try to mirror the mix philosophy of having vocals on top, and so therefore I put the vocals on the top layer. And I have everything kind of vocal related, and we don't do anything fancy about who's the leader, because that leadership does sort of move around sometimes, but there is just mics number 1 through 5, literally left to right on the stage. I put a couple choir mics up there. If there's ever a choir, they would plug it into the particular inputs and have it work right through the system. And then some wireless mics and things. On the second layer, I just put all my guitars. They are stereo guitars, and it's just guitar 1, 2, 3, and 4. I don't really even care whether they're acoustic or electric. We can change that, obviously in the settings. But I just number them, again, left to right, keep things simple. Keys and pads and tracks. We sometimes have a sax, or we'll have a viola. Sometimes a percussion kit comes out on the stage. And I ran out of drum channels, so on the third layer I would have drums, kick and a snare top and bottom. We actually don't have a hi-hat mic anymore because it's picking up in the overheads so well. We just got rid of that. 3 toms, overheads, and then this aux sort of kit that we sometimes put on the stage. There's an electronic drum kit rolling up there, and a couple percussion mics just in case. Down on our aux layer, we went ahead and miscellaneous sort of things like an ambient mic. Obviously the click, which doesn't go through the house clearly, but there is a channel dedicated to it. Stage talkback, that's all the things that they're talking. The tech talkback, actually for the wing, uses a channel, which is a bummer, but I did put it down on the aux layer. And then an iPad, an iMac, we've got a PC as well, and then a USB stick. Actually has 4 inputs, so there's a stereo input and a 3 and 4 that can all play back, and I still have some spare. What's next? As far as DCAs, I use digitally controlled amplifiers. They're not subgroups, but they're just amplifying some set of channels that are over there. So I do vocals, DCA, and instruments, and drums. I know that that's probably sufficient. I went ahead and created a full band DCA. I'll describe here in just a second, but they can mix how much vocals that they want at a certain time versus instruments versus drums. And then if an MC comes up, a master of ceremonies, they come up and they can actually put one finger on the MC mic and then one finger over here on the full band, and the full band would come down while the MC's up and says, let's pray, let's push into what God really has for us. MC finishes, band comes back up, and we keep on going. I think another thing that happens sometimes is a vocalist will actually start talking and ministering to us. So as they start talking to us, we would of course pull down our effects, and then instead of pulling down the full band slider, really what happens is you pull down the instrument slider. So once again, you can put one finger on whatever vocalist is ministering to us, and then the instruments, when they're done, the instruments go right back up, we go right back into worship. This Wayne mixer also has a third area over here of sliders, and these really are my main buses, and I've got a main left and right. I went ahead and went in with what's called an aux-fed sub, but it's basically another main bus that I separated in the subs. There's that rear fill, those speakers, that are at the back of my room. I actually, have a separate bus that I can route things to in order to just get some fill from the rear. And there's actually a speaker that's right above the MC stage. And when we put an actual lapel mic, not a headset sort of mic, not like a Countryman, but just literally a lapel, there's usually so much potential for ring and feedback that I can pull just that one speaker down. And usually it'll be like for a guest speaker or something, but that's a sacrifice we make. If there is a need for a lapel mic, then at least I have the ability to pull out the volume from that one speaker that's right up above that stage. I think that's about all I need to discuss really on this first video about audio. Maybe I'll go into a little bit more detail here in a second.